All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our annual meeting here at St. John's. It's good to have you here. It's kind of weird in December to have, thunder at 4:30 in the morning. But that was a Pensacola thing, not a Roanoke thing until today. But I'm glad you made it out on a rainy day. And thank you so much for allowing this to be moved but for a week. I think, as many of you know, not only have I lost my brother-in-law a few weeks ago, but that very week, one of mine and Shelley's oldest friends also passed away suddenly. He was my age and just out of nowhere, and I had needed to go and do that funeral for him last Sunday, which was a day, as some of y'all saw on Facebook, I think you took me literally, that was a day I did not want to be a priest. I didn't want to be the priest doing my own, one of my best friend's funerals, but I'm glad to be a priest again. But just that one day, I was like, okay, I would have loved to have been a pilot with my life. It's a great morning for the church always to have our annual meetings and to reflect on what we're doing. It's kind of our few chances not only to think about new leadership, but to talk a little bit of family business, which you can't do in the worship services and those sorts of things. So I'm glad that you're here and have taken this with some importance. Let's start with prayer. The Lord be with you. Gracious God, we thank you so much for the blessing of St. John's, for the legacy of this amazing church that has been entrusted into our care in this day and age. And in our world full of anxieties and troubles and concerns and all the rest, not only do we find this place to be a safe harbor for our own souls, but a port that sends us out to do your work in the treacherous waters of the world, to give hope and meaning in a world that desperately needs it, to share the love of Jesus Christ with a society that has largely forgotten that or just needs to hear it anew. Help and inspire each and every one of us to know that in the business of the church, what we're doing is just taking all of the gifts that you have entrusted into our care in order to use them for the purposes for which you have called us as a people. And I ask that your blessing, therefore, be upon the leadership of this parish always, on the staff of this church, certainly on my life as I lead this church as the rector, but mostly on the body gathered, the people of this church which that make themselves together your body at work in the world. May we always be that and never anything less, always to the glory of your name and that of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen. All right, once again, thank you for being here. One thing I want you to do is on the table before you is our annual report, our year in review. And as I say each year, these reports have been put together. They tell you what's going on in the life of the church. I'm so grateful for the people who took the time to make these reports, and I would ask that you take these with you and actually read them. Ask questions about them. Be intrigued. Get involved. Let us know what you think about what's going on. The work of this church, day in, day out, is just amazing, and the stretch of it is kind of seen within the reports here given. So please take this with you. Also within it, and you'll see this on the inside cover, the side opposite, the vestry classes of our church. And thank you so much to those who serve in leadership and have given themselves to leadership within our church. And a special thank you today we give to our outgoing vestry members, and that is Ben Garden, Lawrence McConnell, Dawn Murray, Nicole Terrell, and Lee Wilhelm. Would you give them a round of applause for their service? Now, we today are to vote for a new vestry class that will serve 3 years. There are 5 people that are a part of each ongoing class, and this year our ballot has precisely 5 people. This happens time to time, and it's not intentional. Nobody's just kind of the nominating committee didn't go to 5 and then just stop there and say, okay, we're done. In fact, our nominating committee asked well over 20 people to be involved. There's specific obligations that some people find that it's not a good year for them to serve. There's qualifications that people run into each year. You have to be someone who makes a pledge. You need to be a confirmed member. And for some reason, you know, one of those things sometimes doesn't work out. But most of the time, it's just simply, it's not a good year of service for the people nominated. So first of all, our nominations committee did their work and worked hard to get the 5. And some of the things that you're going to hear me talk about a little bit later with volunteerism and all kinds of stuff, it's sometimes a little bit difficult, especially post-COVID, to get the people in the slots fitted. The other thing that we did, is I hope that you noticed, was for a month solid, we put this as an advertisement for nominations from the church in general, and asked for those nominations. I made announcements about it each and every Sunday, all to say this is the 5 people that we have before us, and that's just fine. And in congressional districts across America, people go unopposed and they have a true election. As long as somebody could run against them, as long as other nominations could be met, then it's all fine. I know sometimes people want more of a choice, so to speak, but that time was during the nominations committee. From the clergy perspective, we have nothing to do with this, but what we want are 5 great people. And what you have of the people willing to serve for the upcoming vestry class are 5 exceptional people. And those people, some of whom are here today, and I know some cannot be, but if you happen to be, please do stand. I know Bill Dobler cannot be here. Lydia Leak is. Lydia? Carrie, thank you. Carrie O'Keefe is back here. It's also told that Wells Dandridge cannot be here. Is Jeremiah Walker here? I did not see Jeremiah. Yeah, Jeremiah. Okay. Now, Christy wasted a bunch of paper and made you ballots, because you can have a ballot, but the thing is, the second that every person gets 1 vote, then they're going to be elected. Okay, and so what I would suggest is that we don't waste our time on that. And if I would have a motion from one of our vestry members to have this by unanimous consent from the floor, this election, I would appreciate it. Lee Wilhelm, and it's been seconded by Hansford. So is there any discussion about that? All in favor for accepting these 5 people for a vestry term of 3 years, say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Thank you. All right, well, it's great to have that group of people coming in. They'll do a great job. All right, we're going to hear from our treasurer now, Hansford Leak.
Good morning. It's great to see so many people here in this room at the 9 o'clock slot when we usually have adult education. Next week, Trey Light will continue his series on baptism, its evolution, and the facts about how it evolved. First, let me report at this point, the financial standing of St. John's is very strong and solid. Thankfully, we have had several years of balanced budgets in which we had an excess, and we expect that to continue. The capital campaign is also in its 5th year of contribution. This will be the final year. If people need to catch up, that's fine too, but that's been very successful, which strengthens their financial position as well. I call your attention and sort of echo what Eric says. The treasurer's report is on page 17, and there's a compilation of October. It says 2023, but it's actually through October of analysis of revenue and expense. Also, the endowment board report is on page 15, and I encourage you to take a look at that as well. And just overall, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me later or anytime during the year. The year 2023 has been a year of change, challenge, opportunities, blessings, and thanksgiving. And that's kind of what I want to talk about this morning. First, personnel. We had several key changes in personnel. We started the year with the retirement of Deb Neff, and that created a void that was not filled until June. And Lisa Case stepped up and filled in the void, and Deb Neff worked off-site to help us keep things going. So we covered that challenge pretty well. But we also had a difficult job searching. There were not that many qualified candidates. We had several interviews, but we were blessed to finally find Joel Benson to come on board as the financial controller. And he's been a very solid performer, and we hope he'll be around for a long time. Another change is that we added Wales Dandridge as a volunteer for our account reconciler for key asset accounts. This is critical to maintaining the integrity of their financial statements and financial activities. We really appreciate him volunteering and coming on board for that. I see he's not here today, but thankfully he was elected to the vestry. And finally, I want to acknowledge and thank the people that work week after week in the teller section, that is compiling and counting the cash. And those folks are Mary Green, Sally Mouse, Gwen Knowlton, Patty Good, Billy Kingery, Bill Cleveland, Ray Cobb, John Bradshaw, and Nelson Teague. I really appreciate their work, and so does Lisa. And also I wanted to make a special thanks to Kathleen Jackson, who served as assistant treasurer, and she's made significant contributions and advised with critical times and made excellent advice. So turning now to 4 items of good fortune and blessings, St. John's continued to appreciate the awesome generosity of all the parishioners who contribute throughout the year. This is a continuation and a trend of prior years, and St. John's has neither had to cut back nor close its doors when many churches have either had to do that or close their doors. A third accomplishment is that we implemented a cash sweep program whereby we were able to ensure that all our deposits were covered by FDIC. And at the same time, we increased our interest rates almost exponentially over the years. And Robert Brailsford was key to getting this job done, and I thank him profusely for that work. Also, by the way, Robert's the treasurer of the endowment committee, and I'd call your attention to take a look at that on 15, which exhibits a very strong position. Also, we experienced the generosity of several donors who made special unplanned gifts, and we're grateful and most thankful for those contributions. And then the last project I wanted to tell you about is we applied for the employee retention credit, which resulted as a result of maintaining qualifying levels of employment during the pandemic. And this is a tremendous receivable, and we included it in the budget for 2024. Taking a look at financial reporting and its related integrity, we received an unqualified opinion from Dole, Hilton, and Davidson for the 2022 statements. These statements showed an excess of revenue over expense by about 5% of budget, or $89,712. So we're very pleased with that report and the fact that we continue to have satisfactory budgets in which we balance them. Excuse me. Okay, look, turning now to page 18 again. In October, again, this is for October, we experienced a net operating total of $54,000 favorable to budget, but we had pledge revenue less than pledged budget, so about $45,000. But typically, December is a strong month, and we hope to make up that shortfall. That's normally the case. This week, the Finance Committee approved a budget of $1,746,000, and the vestry will vote on this on December the 18th. And this budget compares to an actual number of $1,651,000, an estimated total for 2023. taking a look at how that compares with other years, in 2021, it was $1,521,000, and for 22, it was $1,650,000. And you might be interested to know Outreach Ministries will allocate at $98,650, or about 5% of the budget. I know there were a lot of questions and perhaps confusion last year about our outreach budget, so that gives you a little bit of information on that. The pledge campaign for 2024 is not complete. At this time last year, we had 277 pledges. At this point in time, we have 256 pledges. And if you have not made a pledge, obviously we encourage to do that. So, in ending, let me say thanks, blessings, peace to all who contribute to St. John's on a miscellaneous basis, to those who contribute with pledge or unpledged offerings, either by volunteering or with fungible assets. The work, the presence, the mission, the many attributes of St. John's could not exist as it does without those. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Hansford. And moreover, thank you to this generous congregation. To make a budget, these numbers sound big, and probably a bit confusing. And if you do have questions about it, please do ask members of the vestry, particularly our treasurers. That's what they're here for. This is your information, so you're welcome to talk with them about that. But what it boils down to is a church that has a great many responsibilities, because so much has been entrusted into our care. We are, for instance, the largest giver far and away to the ministries of our diocese. We are the largest giver by over $50,000 in those ministries. And as the largest church and the one best positioned in a very rural diocese where most of our churches don't have, the vast majority of them don't have full-time clergy, it's our responsibility to be there for each other. And to whom much is given, much is received. And when you hear something like the outreach budget, just realize, yes, these are the dollars that are given above budget for those specific ministries, but this very building is used all the time, free of charge to house things. So also within the utilities, within the upkeep of this facility, within the staff and our time, what you're seeing is that this church is being used for the glory of God. And as I have said before, I know it just, a fish doesn't know that it's wet, but there are a lot of Episcopal churches that are historic and beautiful and this sort of thing, and they don't want, all kinds of people coming in through their building and for it to be used. My very first Episcopal church, I tried to have a meeting for newcomers in the parlor, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Eric's going to go mess up the parlor," and nobody went in the parlor. It was like that room in your grandmother's house that nobody would ever go in. You go, why did that room ever exist? Well, rooms in God's house are to be used, and this church really does have a heart for using what God gives us. We use them so much, we use the chairs so much, we just got new ones, as you see, what you're sitting on. And nobody's going, "Oh my gosh, take care of the new chairs." Nobody sit on the new chair. Everything here is for the benefit of Christ's mission for the world. And everything in those financial decisions that are made and the finances that are given, we truthfully do try to use it for those purposes. And that's a testimony to you. I have been here 9.5 years, so this is going into my 10th year. That's exactly the same for David Olson, who actually has me beat here at St. John by 1 month. David was hired by the interim, which is an odd decision for an interim to do, to hire somebody. And David, I wasn't sure who David was when I came, and David for sure wasn't sure who I was, but it's been a great partnership, and I certainly love that fact that we've been together this entire time. I've seen many clergy transitions. It's great to have Trey Light come on staff. And next Saturday, by the way, Trey will be ordained priest, which is a huge milestone. I hope you'll join us at St. John's, Waynesboro at 11 a.m. next Saturday. And this year we saw Marisa go, and that was a sad transition for us all. And I know we kind of still mourn that, but that's how it should be. This church has a history of raising up clergy and sending them out to the world above us. And I think that shows us a lot of kind of the charism that the Holy Spirit has given this place, that you see not only in our budgeting, but how we use the building, by how we bring up clergy, that we don't have just an eye for St. John's and it's all about St. John's. We really do have an eye for the world. And I think that's given by our very location right here in downtown, right on this busy intersection where so much of the activity and life of the world around us takes place, that God has uniquely placed us here to have eyes beyond our own doors and make sure that we are being there for one another. And the thing that I've learned over my 10 years here is that really is the heart of St. John's. Different churches have different things that they kind of that they kind of excel at, just kind of like any sort of organization or community or sports team or whatever. As individuals, we have things that we're really good at. And the thing that I find that St. John's is exceptionally good at is not simply thinking about St. John's. This really is a church that is a blessing to the world about it. And to that end, it's been a blessing, therefore, to be your rector for these many years. I have now been with you longer than I've been with any other church that I've served. The three that I led in Kansas City, the one that I founded, St. Mary Magdalene, St. Christopher's in Pensacola, my tenure there was actually shorter than here, which is unbelievable to me. And every now and then when I step back and think about that, it's unbelievable that it has been that long. The other thing that I would note about this 10 years is it's been the most consequential of church transitions that I've seen. The St. John's that I walked into 10 years ago is not the St. John's that we have now. That's inevitably to be the case with any living organism, which a church really is. It's a community that is ongoing and changing, but the very facts of what has happened societally, and most particularly with the pandemic, has really altered and changed how we live our common life. I mean, there's just no getting around that. For maybe up until yesterday, I don't know. A lot of what we have been doing as a staff has been kind of trying to transition to this new life post-COVID and say, well, everybody's going to obviously come back now. Okay, well, not everybody's going to come back right now, or they're going to come back differently. They're going to have to do things differently. They're going to be involved differently, and all that way. David and I kind of very oftentimes will talk about things in the life of the church, and we call it BC, before COVID. And it is just like the change of the calendar from BC to AD, how monumental that change is on calendars. It almost, you could mark and demarcate, the transition in the life of this parish in that way. For instance, before the late winter and spring of 2020, we had, on our last parochial report, 485 people show up every Sunday here at church. Now we have, around 300 show up, which we've had to build back up to. Now, we didn't have any streaming, and we have, from what we can tell, probably that same amount of people streaming, but what you notice is if somebody used to come to church, every Sunday, well, maybe they come once a month or every 2 weeks. If they came once a month, we maybe see them every 3 months or 6 months. The other thing that happened was the volunteer, volunteer work of the church just kind of got like a deck of cards thrown up in the air. And it's not coming back together exactly as it did before. And so almost everything that we have been doing since we've been regathering has really been kind of thinking through how to do church, in this different age where, almost every Sunday, because of the different ways that people gather and come to church, that we almost have a new congregation each Sunday. And when we're trying to do, kind of make sure that we have the volunteer muscle to do the ministries, that's a bit more of a challenge. Now, it's comforting in knowing that we're not near alone. This is being experienced with churches and organizations, across the world probably, but certainly across America. And yet, it is one of those challenges. And I think probably we're in a transition right now between just putting aside, coming out of that. And it really was dramatic enough. It's taken this amount of time for us to kind of adjust to the new normal, which everybody talked about, but that's the best, as cliched as that is, it kind of really feels like that. And it's probably, and I'm just talking to Jennifer Berenson about this, time to do some strategic planning about now, we know where we are, so what's next? And who are we going to be in this new phase of our ministry as a parish? And that transition, that work, is probably the next phase that we're going to do with each other. The good news is that we're in a healthy place to do it. As kind of sad as the fact that everything doesn't come back together exactly as it did before. The reality is that St. John's is still far, far better off than the vast amount of churches, not only in our diocese, but in our country, that churches which were already being shut down across America at an alarming pace because of changes in church attendance and giving and all the rest, that those have been just kind of through COVID, accelerated. It was like putting gasoline on that reality. And we're seeing that sadly within our own diocese, that churches just are really failing. And so when I do gather with churches from around the area and people from other traditions and all the rest, I'm reminded of just kind of how blessed we are. It not only assures me that we're doing right by thinking outside of our own community, but also in our responsibility to others, but also just some gratitude for where we sit, that we are in a place of strength. That said, and this is the part of the family business that you don't talk about, any other place, is we have challenges to really get people engaged, and that is kind of a forever issue within the life of a parish, but we feel it particularly now within this time. And I'm not literally talking to the choir because they're over there, but if you come to an annual meeting, I kind of am. So you either are almost more likely the people that are engaged, but I would encourage you to help others find their place of service. The church is called the body of Christ, and like any body, it doesn't work unless all of it is working together. And while we have, amazing, gifts and resources, and we have enough, as tight as our budgets are each year, and it was again to put that one together, we still, as I mentioned during the pledge season, for instance, this church throughout its history has only had, let me back up. So our membership is 1,600 to 1,800 people. It's very difficult to say. If all of them ever showed up here, we wouldn't know what to do with it, and they're not going to. But if somebody wants a wedding, funeral, those sorts of things, they get sick, that's the kind of the pool of people that do that. Of that, about 1,000 people are active, and so that's our active membership, okay? And out of those 1,000 people, historically, this church has under 40% that actually make a pledge to financially support our church. Now, you would think, well, they're giving in other ways. Well, the difficulty with that thinking is that 80% of our budget, our income, comes from pledge giving. What that means is, for whatever reason, People aren't thinking that it's their role or responsibility or whatever to make a financial gift to this church. Now, you say, well, Eric, we have a budget that has enough, and you just said all of that, and that's all true. But I don't give just to make the budget work. I give because I need to give. My family gives because everybody needs to give. When I was in Haiti, my first time, this little church, little Episcopal church, they wanted prayer books, Creole prayer books, and they're going to cost $200. And I was just like with the priest, well, I'll give you $200. And he said, no, you won't. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, my people don't, they're raising the money. And I said, well, they don't have enough money. I'll give the $200 and use it, for something else. He goes, no, everybody needs to give. And it stuck with me. And so the 40% isn't so that we make a budget. Obviously, we're doing that. It's certainly not to pay staff more, as much as some of them certainly deserve to be paid more. It's because everybody has a responsibility to give. But the other thing that's not seen on that budget, when only 40% of your active membership is giving, is opportunity cost. It's what we're not able to do because everybody's not involved. That's on the giving side. On the participation side, with the volunteers and stuff, so much of that kind of falling apart, and I get it. I think families were overtaxed on their calendars, they were overburdened and all the rest, and I don't blame them at all for taking some stuff off once it went away and not putting it back on. But we as a church really do struggle to be able to find people willing to serve. That's why you have a vestry slate, really, that's 5 people for 5 places. And it takes a lot of work to do that. And it's over and over and over again that we're finding this. These are the things that our church is, I think, being called to do, but everybody has to be involved. In the same way everybody needs to give, everybody needs to serve. Everybody needs to volunteer. Everybody needs to participate. Otherwise, this body isn't being all that we as a body can be. So that's the challenge. That the thing isn't just to make St. John's, function better. As an end to itself, it's to better do the mission. There was some years ago that I read a book by Sebastian Junger, who was a war correspondent, if you knew him, and he wrote this book called Tribe. And Sebastian Junger was intrigued by these soldiers and the like that would go into terrible places in our ongoing wars, and then they would come home and the statistics of suicide and depression and addiction and all the rest that they would find themselves in. And what he realized was in those systems in the military, in those horrible circumstances, it was a tribal little system where everybody had a role and everybody knew their place and everybody had to contribute. And when they got out of that and they came back to a place of affluence and that they were having struggles finding what their meaning in life was because they didn't know where to serve and where they fit. And this goes back to kind of how human evolution and history happened, was that we were, for most of human history, in these little tribes where, resources were scarce and all the rest, and everybody had to have their place of service, their place of meaning. I bring this up because I think in our wider society, why there's so much depression and lostness and all the rest, and even though we have so much affluence, why we feel disconnected, even though in our very pockets are a way to be utterly connected at any time to all these people, why people feel hopeless and meaningless is because they don't know their place within the community, or they don't have any community at all. They don't know what they're called to be. And the church is for sure not the only place that this can take place, but the church is a major place where people can find their mission in life, who they're called to be, their way to serve others, their way to see others, the way to heal divisions, their way to speak justice in a world that needs it, and to do big things together, each in our own place, that could never take place if we weren't together. And as we as a society find ourselves more in silos and talking past each other and just so isolated, that loss of our place, our mission, our way of service and giving and putting in is actually, I think, destroying our souls. That is one of the reasons. One of the even, kind of secondary reasons, because our first is always our following of Jesus, that we gather together. And this church, we don't vote alike, we don't think alike, we don't earn alike. I wish that we had more diversity in how we looked sometimes, but the truth is we gather around God's table, we seek to do big things, we certainly lift above our normal weight, and through God's efforts and us finding our place of service, we do amazing things. The challenge is, post-COVID, is getting people back in the game. And I need your help, because you're the ones who came to the annual meeting, so you're the leadership, you're probably the ones already in that game, of being cheerleaders for it to someone else. I had right after COVID, it wasn't a church member, so I could be really honest with the person. I was at this Christmas party, and this woman said, I go to so-and-so church, and I won't say which one, but it wasn't ours. And, she was in a group of parishioners, and she said, what I realized with COVID is I just don't need the church anymore, and I, so I just know that I'm not going to go, and this sort of thing. She goes, I'll call when if I'm sick or there's a funeral or something like that. And I said, well, you're going to basically assure that there's no church there for you when you're sick or there's a funeral or anything else. And she goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, somebody that doesn't want to be there when other people are in need are going to find that there's no one there for them when they are. The truth is, the world of our community, our community really does need our people to be involved. There's no kind of parts of our body that we don't need. And we do amazing things, but just dream of the things we could do if we all found our place of service, our place in that tribe, so to speak. But beyond that, I believe that the world needs St. John's, that this city would be less if there wasn't a St. John's. I know that the world needs the mission and message of Jesus, and that the Christ that we come and wait for in the season of Advent, for his coming into the world, the way that Christ comes into the world right now is through us. And I have seen churches, this church, be forces of change throughout our history and society so that divisions can be brought down and people seen in new ways, so that justice can finally be done where it has never been done before, where people be healed and taken care of and loved who are on the margins of our society, but also just the hurts and pains of our lives like I experienced over the last month. They're just devastating at times, and things are going to be ripped apart, that all of a sudden you realize that you're not alone, that you're not isolated, and you don't give in to despair and hopelessness because all of a sudden you found that you were surrounded by a community that's brought together by Jesus that loves you. That's what our church is, and I believe that the next step for our congregation, through some visioning, is to figure out how to be that going into the future now that we've emerged from this terrible pandemic and its after effects. And so the state of the church Well, we're strong. That's the great news. We're good. We make budget. We pay the bills. The lights are on. You're going to have air conditioning. We just got a new chiller this summer. It's going to be heated. You'll be glad to know when you go downstairs. We got great staff like Chrissy Oler to help take care of our kids, and David and Trey, and hopefully there's another Maurice out there somewhere that God will bring our way. We're good. But what could we be? What could we be if everybody found their place? And what would it do for their souls to give and serve like you're giving and serving? So thank you. Thank you for 10 years. And let's stream together now for what comes next. Amen. Nicole Terrell, our senior warden, asked to come forward. Before she does, I want to note that in the back, and we don't have enough for all of you, so and that's very intentional. You can blame me totally for this. The long-awaited, directories are back there. There's the very first fruits of it. And why I did not make enough of these things is because they're not completed yet. I mean, it's going to have your address and phone number and that sort of thing. And then if you look at the page, and Trey's holding one up, we'll see those little splotches there. Those are pictures. You see how few there are? That's because we don't have yours. And so that's why I didn't make very many of these, because it's an appeal to each and every one of you. There's several of those, and we'll make more in the office. You can call, reach out to us, email, call us, and we'll immediately get you one. But before I had our staff print a bunch of these things, I was like, well, here's an opportunity to go back. We've asked for photos and all the rest. If you just send us a photo of you, your favorite one. Some of you do it on Facebook. I see you. Others that don't use that, God bless you. If you don't know how to take a digital photo of yourself, make an appointment with us. We'll do it here right after this church service, and we'll get it in there for you. This isn't the fancy Olin Mill stuff. That day is past. Those things cost like $10,000, and they're obsolete the moment they're printed. This is an online system that we are just printing out that we can change. You change your email, we can change it like that. You want a different picture? Well, there it's done. Somebody grows up, and they have you have a little kid and they're 5 years older and they don't even look like that anymore, like my kids. Well, you can get the updated stuff, and we can do it immediately. Now, the other thing, and you'll notice this in your weekly emails, this will be in the record, is that there is a church app that you can get on your phone. I had it. I talked about it last year. It was a little premature, but I can go right now and put it in here, and I can tell you, I won't read it out to everybody, Hansford, but here's Hansford Leake's email and his phone number. You have to sign in with credentials, obviously, to do that. The problem with this is right now they only have it for Apple products. So if you have an Android device, I'm sorry, but they're working on that. But this is available to you. You can also do it online. We're going to help you do that. And if you don't want to do any of that, we'll print out one of the directories from you. They're not going to be glossy and fancy and all that sort of stuff, and I hope you'll forgive us, but what they're going to be is actually accurate, which is fantastic and able to adapt and change. So, if you really want one today, that's great, but what I want you to do, if we don't have a photo of you, is to send it to my secretary, Christy Brown. If you don't know who that is, send it to anybody on the staff, and it'll get to the right place, I promise you, and we will update this thing and print them out, and it won't be just this splattering of photos. Fair deal? All right. Okay, Nicole?
Good morning. Let me say that it has been my absolute privilege to serve on vestry for the past 3 years. Please make every effort to do so if you possibly can. It's such a wonderful way to learn about the church, to support the church, and to do good work. If you'll read my letter or my report in the annual report that's on your table, it starts off with talking about what a joyous year this has been, and it truly has been. This is the first year since early 2020 that we have had complete programming, that we have had complete all 3 services, that we have been in person, and it's just been really wonderful and remarkable to see. And of course, we have people to thank for that. All the clergy, all the staff have been great. Most importantly, our leader, Eric Long, has been amazing. He and David and Trey would have if he were here, have coordinated everything during COVID so that the clergy didn't get COVID, so that we could still worship online, and it was amazing to see all of us come together, even online. From the vestry, we would like to present Eric with recognition of leadership for his 10 years, and especially for these past few years in COVID. We also have a gift for him, which he doesn't need to open, but I'll tell you what it is. It is a gift certificate to Fortunato for him and his family to enjoy. And more importantly, he gets monogrammed socks, and they're not monogrammed with ECL, which is his name. They are monogrammed with KCC, which is Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay. All right.
And I know he has lucky Kansas City Chiefs socks, but they're a little bit ostentatious, to be quite honest. And so these are very discreetly monogrammed, so he can wear them every day and nobody will even know that he's thinking about his favorite football team.
Well, thank you. And I hope they're lucky. Well, thank you for the honor of being your rector these years, and thank you so much for this. And socks, I hope they're lucky. They need it right now. Anyways, if you haven't been to church, I'll see you in just a few minutes. If you have been to church today, God bless you in your week, and thank you so much for being St. John's. We love you, and we're going to do great things in the years ahead. God bless.